It works. It hasn't aged. They have just this wonderful rapport, and it's this weird marriage of these two people. And you go, how come they work together? It's just this weird combination of Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. It's just Willy Wonka and this really outrageous stand-up comic works so amazingly well together.
I just didn't find it very funny. The jokes were kind of not really my thing.
It's dad jokes, and you can't hate a dad joke. You just can't. It might not make you laugh, but it's the fact that it's so unfunny is what makes it funny. It's a very fun movie. It's silly, it's dumb, it's very 80s, but it's wonderful.
Hello, film fans. Joining Flixwatcher today, we've got Kevin.
Hello.
Will.
Hello.
And Kobe.
Hello.
And we're here to talk See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
At FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello everyone, thanks for listening. Joining Flixwatcher, we have Kevin and Will. If you could please say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, I'm Will, and Kevin and I are both screenwriters. Between us, we've written Wolfwalkers. That's me, and Kevin has written Grabbers. And we have started a podcast called The Best Bits, which is a podcast about us picking our favorite scenes from randomly selected, weirdly specific themes. We have done podcasts on things like Tom Cruise running scenes, best single take scenes, best fight scenes, best sex scenes, best I love you scenes, and all that sort of stuff. So that's what our podcast is about.
And who are you?
Hello, and I'm Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
I've said everything, Will.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, he knows how to introduce the podcast. That's great. We've had guys on before for previous episodes talking about Karate Kid and No Country for Old Men. So you guys are seasoned regulars, and I'm a fan of your podcast. And I do remember the Tom Cruise running episode, because I think you estimated how far he ran based on the average land cruising speed of a Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Is that right?
It's insane. He full Tom is 26 kilometers an hour, and insanely, the more Tom Cruise runs in a film, the more successful it is financially and critically. But I have to.
That can't be true anymore.
Put that metric. I have to apply Top Gun Maverick to that metric. So that theory might be blown to smithereens.
That film has gone past the last Star Wars films in terms of box office.
$660 million in the US domestically.
Power of cinema.
Incredible stuff.
It was a good, fun romp of a film, and but obviously he didn't run in it, He didn't run in it. Well, no, hold on. He ran a bit on the beach scene. Spoilers for Top Gun Maverick. There's a bit of running there, wasn't there? But that was it.
Yeah. Oh, there might have been running in the final act. They're running across.
Yeah.
I won't not say anything more.
Yeah,
Not saying anything more. Yeah. Running on when they were running along the wings of the plane.
The beach football scene.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before about the beach scene. I was trying to mask it a bit there, Kevin.
Yeah.
But you just went balls out and told them what sport they were playing. Everyone's seen it anyway by now. It's made gajillions.
They've seen it twice, haven't they?
Yeah, most people see it. But look, I mean, my wife was like, I want to see it again. I was like, go and see it again then. That's your prerogative. Do it. We're here to talk about not Tom Cruise. See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which is your choice, Kevin. Can you tell us why you chose it first of all? And then I'll get the timer up, and you have 60 seconds or fewer to tell us the synopsis.
I chose this because it was one of the... Should I speak now? Or?
Yes, you can speak now.
We're not timing you on this one.
Okay. I chose this one because I saw this as a kid staying at my cousin's house, where the aunts and uncles would go to the pub and we'd get to pick out a film at the video shop, and we'd go back and we'd have all our junk food and we'd watch films like I'm Gonna Get You Sucker and what was that Second Sight, all these dodgy 80s comedies, and one of them was See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and this was far and away the most superior of the lot of them. It was hilarious, and I wanted to revisit it for that reason. And because I caught it a few times over the years on TV and it always made me laugh again. So I had great affection for this film.
Okay. And the timer starts now.
Okay. I guess this film could be perfectly synopsized by its movie poster, which says, the blind guy couldn't see it, the deaf guy couldn't hear it, now they're both wanted for murder. The first drop-dead comedy of the summer, see no evil, hear no evil. And that's basically the film in a nutshell.
Are we going to allow people just to eulogize film posters, Helen? I'm not sure about that. I think we'll take
I came up with that on the fly.
You didn't say who's in it?
Yeah.
Like Kevin
Gene
Spacey.
Wilder and Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, Joan Severance, I think her name is. That's about it. There's not many other...
Directed by Arthur Hiller.
Arthur Hiller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This was the second collaboration between Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder.
It was after Stir Crazy, was it?
Stir Crazy. They tried to reunite for Hanky Panky and Richard Pryor dropped out, and so Gene Wilder ended up doing that movie with Gilda Radner and he got married to her. So I think he was happy with that.
And
yeah.
everyone assumed that the black character in Blazing Saddles was supposed to be Richard Pryor, but
that's right.
For many reasons, it wasn't him. But
Richard Pryor had a hand in writing some of the jokes for that film. Yeah. And I can tell you that Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder had a hand in writing the script.
In this script, well, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I saw Gene Wilder's name on it. I didn't see Richard Pryor's name on the. There was quite a few. There's quite a few story credits or script credits in this.
Mm-hmm.
5. I've noted that there was 5 different writers on this.
And the other reason why is because the film was offered to... They wanted to reunite Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor again. And as I said, there was other projects that they were circling doing, and one of them or the other dropped out at different stages. And this one was one that Richard Pryor was dead keen on doing, and they had to keep going back to Gene Wilder to get him to sign on, and he was reticent to do it because he thought that it might be too insensitive or a bit clumsy in how it dealt with people with disability. And
I wonder.
The only reason he agreed to do it was that if he could collaborate with one of the institutes that deals with speech therapy for deaf people to help him shape some of the character beats of the movie, and then he agreed to do it. And I think he was right to insist on that.
I mean, look, that's quite progressive for the 80s, where they would just thought, yeah, fuck it, let's just get 2 disabled people in and we'll throw some jokes in there and see what sticks. And I was concerned. I'd watched this loads as a kid. One day my dad just came back from, it must have been Woolworths, with this VHS, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. I recognised Richard Pryor from Superman 3. And I was just mesmerised by this like VHS, because we had lots and lots of films, but they tended to be recorded off the TV. So we had very few, there were like some Disney films, and then this was like an original bought VHS tape. So already it was like elevated in my esteem to like the best film ever. And then when he suggested it, I was like, oh, this isn't going to hold up well, is it? It's not going to hold up well at all. And I think in general, at the start, I thought some of the jokes were actually quite lazy, but I think as the film kind of progressed, I thought that there was more heart than I kind of remembered, and the relationship between the guys. And I was really concerned that they were just going to make fun of blind people and deaf people and people with disabilities just for the fun of it. But I think where they didn't land for me was where I thought the jokes weren't that funny, really. Like when Richard
Pryor, we're gonna fall out. This film cracks me up.
No, I mean I enjoyed it more as it came on, but when they're kind of setting the scenes, like, oh, Richard Pryor, he can't see and he can't see again. Oh, guess what, guys? He can't see. He's there reading a newspaper upside down. You're like, come on, guys, we can do better than that. But when they're actually the meat of the film, where Gene Wilder and him are like piling up together, that's where I think the film kind of takes off more. But those kind of initial setup scenes, those initial setup scenes, like he's crossing road and then there's another blind guy. And they're like, can you help me cross the road? I'm like, I kind of get what you're getting,
but
I think
it's playing on his ego. It's like he's too proud to admit that he can't see. You see, what I like about it is that it's a film that just makes me smile from the beginning to the end. It's the smile starts to get a bit wan towards the end, because I think there are moments where it drags on a bit. But the easy chemistry that they have, and the fact that there's nothing mean-spirited about the comedy, it's sort of like dad jokes, and you can tell that they've got a glint in their eye as they're doing it. There is a lot of heart in this, but I don't know. For me, this is. I wanted to double check myself to see whether there was any complaints about the film at the time. And in fact, it was the opposite. It was that the blind and deaf community were delighted to have those characters be the hero in the movie, but also to have the villain be a disabled person as well. So that they weren't side characters. They were all sort of the most important characters in the movie.
No, I took a note of that, and I thought that was really actually quite progressive, because typically, typically disabled people are the super sidekicks. Helen, Will, thoughts on seeing it? Had you guys seen this before?
I saw this back in the VHS days. This is one of those posters that was ever present on the wall of my video library. And
what was your video library called?
The video library.
Was that?
Peggy's Corner Shop.
My mother's Peggy, so I know it would confuse things, but no, it was the video library, and because that was it. But I would go in, and it was one of those posters that I saw. I'm sure I rented it, and it slotted into one of those fun, distracting. Kind of like multi-rent films that you would slap it on with a Police Academy or something like that, and it would just tickle us for a while, and you might rent it again and whatnot. I love Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. In actual fact, I think I have more of a fondness or a nostalgia for Stir Crazy, because I think that's the one that I somehow saw more than this one, and I love their chemistry together. I think it is still. It works. It hasn't aged. They have just this wonderful rapport, and it's this weird marriage of these two people. And you go, how come they work together? It's just this weird combination of Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. It's just Willy Wonka and this really outrageous stand-up comic works so amazingly well together. The film itself, I think, there are times where the jokes don't work for me. Right, there are times where I kind of went, okay, kind of like you, Colby, where I was like going, yeah, it's another kind of obvious blind guy joke, but there are enough moments of there's just enough goodwill I have for the two of them that carries me through this kind of. Again, even a ropey plot. It kind of it's just a kind of a throwaway plot, and they kind of get, when they get completely hamstrung into this thing, you kind of roll your eyes a little bit, but it's them.
I still don't understand it. It's a conspiracy about a gold coin, which has actually got something to do with nuclear warheads or something.
That's the thing.
It's a semiconductor that would help.
Okay,
that's
bombs.
The thing. It's important for some reason.
The MacGuffin set, not all MacGuffins.
The scenes are about Gene Wilder rescuing a girl, the alarm going off, and being completely oblivious to the alarm going off. That's what this movie is, and I love it for those moments.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I just love it for the moments between the two of them. So that's where I kind of stand on it broadly.
Helen.
So I've never seen this before, so this was my first time watching. Probably won't be surprised to know that I struggled a bit with it. I mean, Kevin Spacey's in it anyway, so you kind of have to accept that. You did warn us.
He's
so
the evil in the title.
And then, I mean, it's just not. I just didn't find it very funny. The jokes were kind of not really my thing, and there's the really uncomfortable sexual harassment that comes partway through it. But I think watching it, just that this is clearly after Richard Pryor set himself on fire, and possibly after his MS diagnosis as well, and he's frail. Yeah, and I don't know, I was just kind of watching it going, he doesn't look particularly comfortable or particularly kind of like with it at that point, and sort of, I don't know, that was kind of weird as well. And although there was a bit where he's the bit that I did think was quite funny is where they have that fight, and they're fighting like Ratatouille, when Ratatouille, the Remy with the pulling each other's arms. So
1 o'clock.
3 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, so that was kind of the peak, I think, for me on this one, as someone watching it now.
The only scene that I do think is a bit icky is when, and I knew it was coming, and even though I forgot the scene, I still knew it was coming, because I thought, are they going to do a boner joke here? Where he had the gun pointed at her, and then I don't know why they do it, but he goes over and he kisses her, and then
That's what Helen meant by the sexual harassment, right?
Yeah, that's the only scene that I think. The other stuff is like, it's dad jokes, and you can't hate a dad joke. You just can't. It might not make you laugh, but it's the fact that it's so unfunny is
We
what
should
makes
point
it
out she's
funny.
completely naked when he goes over and kisses her.
She is. But the boner joke, I thought, they're not going to do it, are they? They're not going to do it.
Did you not remember that from when you saw it as a kid?
It went over my head. I didn't.
Same.
Yeah.
Did not register with me at all. The moment that my favorite scene in this movie actually is because I love all the sort of the hijinks of they're driving along and they can't see and they're having to give each other instructions to be able to partake in this car chase. Because actually, I was thinking about bringing up that scene in our chase movies
No
episode,
way.
in our chase scene episode. Yeah, because it's a spin on it. But my favorite scene in the movie, I should get to this, is when they are on, I don't know where it is, it's by the train tracks. The police car has been dumped and they're trying to push it through the swamp and they're bickering with each other. And it's just, and Jim was saying, "You fucking swear an awful lot." And he starts just going off on a tirade. And there's something about Gene Wilder losing his temper that is hilarious to me. So I was just cracking up at that.
My favourite scene is when they somehow the car ends up on top of a rubbish tip, and Dave's like,
He's saying, "You're one of my best friends."
It's like, of course, you've earned my trust. We've been very good friends for the past couple of days. You're always there for me. And Wally and Richard Pryor's like, "That's beautiful. Do you mean everything you just said?" And then Gene Wilder just his face turns. I'll tell you how I feel in a minute or two. Right now, I'm a little overwhelmed by the stink. And then it ends up with, "Oh, I thought you let one go." And I thought that whole that segment there was like, that's where the character beats happen.
Yeah.
It's almost like Morecambe and Wise type of skits.
It is, yeah.
It's that level of comedy. Because for a lot of these scenes to work in this movie, the other characters, the sort of the threat characters, have to also be dumber than rocks.
Like in the Ratatouille scene where this big guy can't duck a punch.
Yeah.
And also Kevin Spacey can't duck a punch as well.
Did you notice the big cyst on his face?
Of course I did. I wonder, was that natural? Did he get surgically removed after the film?
He did, yeah. That's why he's got a scar on his face in all his
Was that
movies.
a real thing?
It was, yeah. He had a cyst growing on his face and he had to get surgically removed.
I thought that was an affectation for his character.
No.
No, I'm trying to look at Kevin's face here and see, is he going to crack? Is this? That's not for. Look at you. I can't. You can't trust Kevin. Is he telling me a lie, or is this? Is like, I need to.
The listeners know, because the listeners can look it up.
Yeah, look it up. Is this real? It looked like it was fake to me. Like, my God.
No, it was a real cyst.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely lying for listeners. One of do you know what this film had that I loved from the films of the 80s, and I miss it so much, and this is a pure nostalgia thing.
Unnecessary nudity.
Real streets with real people.
The opening credits, where we establish the world in which this film is set. We have opening credits and we just have shots of New York City, of people working on streets, people shouting at each other, people getting mugged, people getting shot, all this sort of stuff. And it just sets the place. And I went, I like just random shots of this world that the story set in. And I miss that. And I love it. And I appreciate it every time I see it in one of these films.
Yeah. Lets you settle into the movie.
Yes.
I thought it was quite economical how they introduced both characters.
Yeah.
Where one is having an argument with a road rage driver, and then Richard Pryor comes along thinking he's arguing with him. I thought, yeah, it's just get straight in there. You don't need much else. But I also really admired the fact that they had to remember the choreography of the scenes in order to make the jokes land. So it'd be like if Gene Wilder turned his head for a second, he had to not hear what Richard Pryor was saying, and then react to the next line. And that to me is like 4D chess in your head. Like,
there's only less than a handful of moments where that logic breaks, where you see sometimes Gene Wilder says something that Richard Pryor responds to, and you're like going, Richard Pryor was looking through the binoculars, he couldn't have seen that, and it's only there's a minor few of those moments, but for the most part, that magic trick works.
When I thought another thing that went over my head thinking about it now was the mens rea joke, where
I didn't get that.
What was that?
Yeah.
Remind me of that one.
So they're in this is when they've been arrested, and they find out that so I think a police officer or a lawyer comes in and says they can't have done it, or they've done it because I can claim mens rea, which is like a legal term which suggests that they've got the capacity
Between
to
the both
commit
of them,
crime.
they can both be tried as one person that committed the crime.
Okay.
Well, long story short, it's a crime thing, but it sounds like an STI joke. And you see Gene Wilder not understanding that and going crazy. It's like, we've got mens rea, and he's being dragged down the hallway. That as a kid, that as a kid, I didn't understand at all. It made no sense to me. But this is the first time I've seen that and it landing. But maybe it didn't land for you guys. But I think a couple of things which didn't sit with me with the Gene Wilder's an amazing lip reader, Dave, unless comedy required that he wasn't. And
Fuzzy Wuzzy.
Yeah, Fuzzy Wuzzy was a woman, which made me laugh as a kid.
It's probably the most memorable line from the movie. Was he or wasn't he?
Are you serious?
Wuzzy was
and
a
then
woman?
we have two inept cops as well, which are 80s inept.
I loved it. Do you know what? And I thought it's probably the sad state of the world, but when the cop at the end got his back up over what Richard Pryor said to him, and he said, I want to shoot him. I want to shoot him. Why can't I shoot him? But we did all this. Let me shoot him. And I thought, oh, that's not as funny today as it probably was back then.
You know, in that scene, I laughed out loud, where it's at the climax of the film, and Gene Wilder is trying to stop the security guard for, I don't know, whatever reason. He's trying to stop the security guard from escaping in a helicopter, and he's just holding a knife, and he starts shouting, "Stop!" And meanwhile, the cops appear behind him, and the security guard's like, "You've only got a knife, and you're like, you're 50 feet away from me." And he says, "No, I mean it, stop!" And all of a sudden, the cops show up, but Gene Wilder doesn't know it, and the security guard stops, and he starts doing everything that Gene Wilder commands. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've got control of the situation." And he turns around and there's just this complete, the armed forces from the entire state are there. And I think it's just a very funny moment.
The only moments where it dragged for me was when they got to the hotel of the bad guys' lair, or whatever you want to call it, and they had to give Richard Pryor a sort of a side quest mission where he had to portray
Be a
a
gynecologist.
Swedish gynecologist.
That's right.
And had to give a lecture. And I thought, this is not necessary for the story to sort of play out, and it's not that funny. I was getting a bit bored of that, but and that I was well into this movie.
So, Helen, any other thoughts on See No Evil, Hear No Evil before we head to the scores?
I just quickly checked, and apparently that cyst was real.
Oh wow!
No
There
way.
you go. Apologise, Will.
Oh my
On
God.
mic.
So he was evil. I'm joking.
He still is evil.
I'm
Evil
joking.
all along.
Oh my God, that's an evil cyst.
On
Well,
an
there you go.
evil man.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh
that
my God.
would definitely have stopped him getting more roles.
Never trust
Quick,
the Kevin.
put it back on.
Wow. I'm shocked. Listeners, it's worth watching, listeners, just to see his real cyst.
No, it's not.
Just to see his real cyst.
It's genuinely off-putting.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. Wow.
Well, the one thing I was going to say in terms of the scene with Joan Severance in the shower, that in the 80s version, the VHS, it wasn't cut off. In the in this version, they'd actually edited it down so it was above.
Wait, this was edited?
Yeah. So I remember.
So what was in the 80s version?
So in the 80s version, when she dropped her top, you could see down to her waist or something like that. But in this version, it stopped like just below her shoulder.
Oh, you never see
Really?
her topless.
So at least someone's gone back and they thought.
Let's cover her tits up.
They look like great tits as well. That's terrible.
On that bombshell.
Yes.
Well, like I say, you can go to see it if you can find a VHS version. It definitely was there because this was one of the films. Like I don't know why my dad brought it. It was a 15.
I bet it's really blurry.
There's
I bet if you
lots of swearing in it, and there's a naked woman in it. And I was like,
Okay.
why am I watching with you, Dad? This is like a trifecta of things that shouldn't happen as like a 10-year-old.
It was a
Going
15
eBay.
certificate, so he shouldn't have been showing at you and is
Yeah,
a
but-
youngling.
But you know, we've discussed about how old we were when we saw
Before or after
RoboCop.
RoboCop years.
Yeah.
Back in the days, those little numbers in the circle in the corner meant nothing to parents. It was just decoration on the cover of boxes. They had,
also when you'd watch those films, you'd know that something dirty was about to come up because the tape would start to skip, and it was to get really frayed. Where people have stopped, rewound.
Let's head to the scores, guys.
Yes.
I'm Sam Clements, host of the 90 Minutes or Less Film Festival, another podcast in the Stripped Media family, a podcast that celebrates movies under 90 minutes long. Each episode, I'm joined by a special guest who selects a movie to join our prestigious lineup. Past guests have included fellow Stripped Media family members Martin and Sam from Song by Song, and Kobe from Flixwatcher, and Dave from The Wire Stripped. Search for us now on the app you're currently listening to this podcast, or join us at 90minfilmfest.com.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of the scores are out of 5. You may have decimal places if you wish, and we'll start with you, please, Kevin, because you picked it with your recommendability.
I'm going to give this a 5.
Really?
Yes, because I'm going to be working against the rest of you. So I'm going to give it a 5. It is a comedy that, for me, it puts a smile on my face, and I just chuckle along with it, and I marvel at the chemistry between Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, who are both fantastic on their own, but together they just have this wonderful vibe to them, and it's a very fun movie. It's silly, it's dumb, it's very 80s, but it's wonderful.
Will?
I'm going to give it a 3 because listen, I have to give it my honest score because I don't think it's going to work for everyone. I think it's going to work for people maybe who saw it back in the 80s. I think someone coming to it fresh, it mightn't work for them because some of the jokes don't land and are a little bit obvious at times. But I'm still giving it 3 because I think Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor are fantastic on screen, and you should check out Stir Crazy. And I haven't seen their other film that they collaborated on in 1991. I think it's called Another You or something. Another You? Is that what it's called?
Another Love, Another You, Another something.
Yeah.
I
haven't seen that, and I'm actually
Another You.
I'm curious to see that film, but it's a 3 for me.
Helen?
Yeah, so I have a friend who is deaf, and I also have a friend who is pretty much blind, and I wouldn't recommend they watch this. I don't think they would get that much out of it, I don't think. I'll give it a 1 for giving Kevin Spacey's cyst. If you ever wondered what his face looked like with the cyst, then this film's for you. I know, it's just like have it curious. We've done Stir Crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say
and,
that.
And my
it didn't score so high.
No, my scores were lower than 1 for that. So.
Oh wow! I haven't seen it in 35, so I haven't seen it in over 30 years.
That's the one that I feel would be more dated than this one.
Well, it had no plot, and we didn't find it. A lot of people, it scored very low.
Really?
I'll tell you that now. I don't think anyone around the table had seen it, even though they're both fans of both Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. But it just, I think,
directed by Sidney Poitier.
Yes, and I mean, everyone was like, "What?"
Yeah,
wow.
I can tell you what score it got. I'll tell you what score it got after after Gil Scorpio and overall. I'm going to give it a 2.5. No, I'm going to give it a 3. I was looking forward to watching it because I watched it like a gajillion times as a kid, but I was also like, oh, this is going to be bad. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't, and as Kevin said, so as Will said, I think it wasn't the jokes. I didn't feel like the jokes were smiting disabled people. I just thought when they didn't land, I just didn't think they were that good. So yeah, 3 is my score here. Repeat viewing score, Kevin.
5.
I wonder what's going to happen here. 5. So, why?
Because
Why?
It is a very progressive film. It has 2 disabled people in the lead. It is a film that was done in consultation with the deaf community and the blind community. It's very progressive for that, as I said, and it's also very funny. And there's a lot to like about it, and it's recommended.
Will?
I'm going to go lower, I'm afraid. Once you've seen it once, I think you've seen it. I'm Kevin. I'm so sorry. He's disgusted with me.
I am.
I know, but I'm going to go.
I'm going to give you hell on our podcast.
I know I'm in for a torture here. I'm going to give it a 2 because once you've seen it, I don't think there's Maybe, I mean, maybe, anyway, I'm giving it a 2. I'm sorry.
Helen.
Yeah, and I can't see a situation where I'm going to come back to this one. So I'm just referencing my Stir Crazy scores. So I'm going to give it 0.5, which was more than what I gave Stir Crazy for repeat. I'm not going to watch this. Even 143 minutes, I've had my fill.
Is that how long it was?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a bit too long, isn't it?
It flew by.
Repeat viewing score. I'm going to give it quite a high score based on how many times I did watch it as a youngling. But then temper that down for how often I'm going to watch it in the future. So that's a 3.8 there. Small screen score. I think it would pick up some high scores here. Kevin.
5. Because no, I'm not going to do that. No, actually, I am, because it's gonna be right down the bottom of your rankings if I don't give it 5s. Even though I don't think that any movie benefits by being on a smaller screen than a bigger screen, but I'm still going to go 5.
Will.
I'd go 6 if I could.
I'm genuinely going to say I'm going to give this a 4. I think the chemistry between Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder works on a big screen or a small screen, and that's worth watching on a small screen, and it comes across. So there's the moments in there that I think are watching. So I'm giving it a 4. I want to bring my average up a bit.
Helen.
I'm going to give this one a 5. I don't want to see this at the cinema.
That's how our scores work there.
Hang on, I think I've misread the rules on this. This gets a 5 because you don't want to watch it on the big screen. Okay.
Well, this is it. So, yeah.
It's perfectly suited to your TV size screen. I don't think there's any need to go and see it at the cinema.
I'll be honest with you, I watched this on my phone.
There you go.
It's a definite 5 then.
Engagement score, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. So there are some problematic jokes. It does have some dodgy dad humor. It's 80s. It's not all going to land, but it's very, very fun. So 5.
I don't know if that's defensive scoring, but sure.
It is. It's totally defensive scoring.
Protect your domain. Will.
Honestly, again, you're asking me about engagement. I love Richard Pryor. I love Gene Wilder. I can see magic happening in moments in this film. And I also love watching films from the 80s and set in that time period. So on the basis of that, I was constantly intrigued and hoping that I would have more moments where I was like, things would spark into life where I would go, oh, I really love this moment. I was constantly looking for those other golden moments between the two of them. So I was engaged. I didn't find myself going, oh, come on. So most of the time I was there. So I'm giving it 3.5.
Helen.
So it does have that it's only an hour and 43 minutes going for it. I ended up watching this at an airport on the way back, and the flight was delayed. So obviously I was quite keen to be checking when the flight was going to be around. So it did not, unfortunately, 100% have my engagement. I think it's quite longer. 143 had it like shaved off those 10 minutes, then it might have been a bit more zippy, a bit more pacey. So I'm going to go for probably 2.5.
Yeah, I'm going for 3.5 because I thought it was going to be bad all the way through, and it wasn't. And I thought it got better with time, and then maybe faded off towards the end. But I was always like kind of in it, and I was willing Wally and Dave to come good, and that gives us an overall score of 3.55.
Okay, that feels like a correct score for this film. My strategy worked.
So Stir Crazy, higher or lower?
I'm going to say it's higher because it's got a bigger footprint than this one.
Hold on.
Well, you think Stir Crazy is higher than See No Evil, Hear No Evil?
I think the opposite. Yeah. Based on what you've already said, it sounded like Stir Crazy got an awful score. So I think Stir Crazy is at the bottom of your list.
Stir Crazy got 2.3750.
Wow. And that's very harsh, lads.
And places it at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th from the bottom.
Wow.
As we need to update with like 10 or so more films, but it sits beneath Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. And the Never Ending Story, which we kind of panned.
The original Never Ending Story. You panned it?
Yeah, it's not great.
Wow.
My God.
Wow. Okay.
Travesty.
I'm just singing. That theme tune is going through my head right now. I'm there.
Well, I mean, the theme tune's one thing, but then the rest of the film's like...
Wow. And so this is higher than Never Ending Story. See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Okay.
3.55 is like
decent.
Decent. Most films
Cute.
get about 3.
I want to
Three
say
to
I want to
four.
know where Karate Kid ranks now, because that was the other one I brought that got kicked about the place.
So Karate Kid, so 3.55 exactly places it joint with Watchmen. I can't tell you where in the table is. So beneath Donnie Brasco and above The Mask. So what was it? Karate Kid. So everyone listening along, you can go to flixwatcher.tv/scoreboard to check out where these films ranked in your own time. So Karate Kid, Control F, Command F.
You can also play around with the table and rank them by their individual scores as well, because obviously our scoring system is very unique.
I have a feeling that my Karate Kid scores were 5 across the board as well.
I don't want to cross the streams, but I'm looking at Letterboxd, and I always actually like looking at what the average rating on Letterboxd is. And See No Evil, Hear No Evil got a 3.2 average rating on Letterboxd. It's just throwing that out there. Not bad. Not terrible.
Not bad. Karate Kid, we gave it 4.0250.
See, that's good.
Oh,
Over
that's
4
good.
is strong.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Guys, tell the listeners where we can find you online. Tell us about your podcast, and we'll say goodbye to everyone who's joined us today.
I'll leave it to you, Kevin.
We're Will and Kevin from the Best Bits podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on Twitter under @BestBitsPod. And come check us out. We're talking favourite film scenes. And we love movies on that podcast. So,
Everything Kevin said.
no 1-star ratings over there.
We love films too, just
You
not
do.
all of them.
Oh,
You
great.
just don't like films with sexual assault. I get it.
Or Kevin Spacey's face. Cyst or no cyst.
Fair. This is the biggest revelation from this thing tonight. That cyst.
That cyst was real.
Holy moly. My God. Listen.
No, the biggest revelation is that you didn't think I was telling the truth.
I genuinely didn't. I thought you were making it up because I thought it's so,
Get no respect.
it looks like a real prosthetic. Crikey.
Kevin Spacey's appearance now in every movie dings it. And
So you
in fact,
just a
the ones
scar.
where he's the star,
Right.
yeah, he's got a scar.
What?
The ones where he's a star, it's like I just don't like that film as much anymore. Like American Beauty, feels like the villain in that
You
film.
can't watch it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure talking about See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which I may never have watched again if it wasn't for you. So
Thanks for having
Pleasure.
us. It's been great to you.
I've been watching it this entire time.
we're trying to get to that bit with Joan Severance.
Keep
Hasn't been
rewinding and
edited
fast
out.
forwarding.
Going on eBay and VHS for stereo. Yeah, it's there. It's mine. It's so.
But you also need a VHS player. Oh, that's
I
next in
have
line.
one. I actually have one. Kevin's shaking his head disapprovingly.
He's going to come around and watch it. Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.